Hey everybody, welcome back to Hello Dev World. I'm Rachel and today is day 8 of the 365 Days of Coding Challenge. Today's a little different. I'm actually starting a 4-day series on how to create a sign-up form. It's going to have a first name, a last name, an email, and a phone number with validation, and it's also going to have an OAuth option to sign in with Facebook or Google. Today is part 1. We're just going to create the basic HTML for the form. Since this challenge is more than just one function, I'm actually going to create a repository. Each day is going to have its own branch, and then every day that branch is also going to be merged into master. So by the end of the series, master will have all the code, but it will also have a branch for each day. So if you wanted to do the challenge per day still, you still can. I'm going to put a link to that repository down below. If you don't know what 365 Days of Coding is, every day of 2021, I'll be posting a challenge on my blog in the morning and a solution on my blog and on YouTube for that challenge. If you would like to get the challenge in the morning in your email, I'm going to put a link in the description down below to subscribe to that. So without further ado, let's get started. All right, so now that we're back at the computer, let's start coding. If you would like me to do a video on how to use GitHub, how to pull down the project, and how to push up edits, let me know. I'll be happy to do a video on that. Let's create our index.html file. VS Code has some built-in HTML snippets, so we can get some of our boilerplate tags from VS Code pretty easily. So if we do DOC and then press tab, we'll get our boilerplate HTML document. And we can leave this meta tag the way that it is, but we're going to change this title to be sign up form because we're creating a sign up form. If you don't know what that title is, that's just the text that shows up in the tab when you go to a web page. And now let's start creating our form. I'm going to create a div that's going to be a container for everything in our form. And this is just proper practice. Again, VS Code has a built-in helper for this. So if we do div and then dot, anything after that dot is going to be the class name. So I'm going to do div.formContainer because I want to name our container form container. And you'll notice that I use camel case. It's just something that I like using. I think it's easy to read. I'm really used to it, especially being a JavaScript dev. I just like using camel case. It really is up to the dev what they want to do for naming conventions. That just happens to be the one that I usually go with. I'm going to create a header for this form. I'm going to use an H1 tag. And again, you can do H1 and press tab and it'll create those tags for you. And in there, I'm just going to put sign up. For my form, the style of form that I'm going for, I'm just going to use inputs with placeholders. If you want to use labels, you can, and I'll show you how to do that a little bit later. But I'm just going to use inputs with placeholders. So let's start creating those. We need some inputs, and I'm going to make the class for my inputs form input. I'm giving them all the same class so that if I needed to make any styling changes to all of the different inputs, it will be very easy. All I have to do is point to that class because it'll be on all of them. We can leave this type alone. It's going to be a type text. We are, however, going to add a name. It's a way to look at the data later once you actually submit the form and they get that data. And it's also a way for JavaScript to be able to point to that input. And then, like I said, we're going to give it a placeholder, and that's just the gray text that shows up in those inputs. If you've ever gone to Facebook or Google, you'll usually see in their search bars, they have that gray text that goes away once you click into it. That's the placeholder. And then we're going to put a required tag at the end because according to the challenge, this input is going to be required. Now, all the inputs are going to be very similar, so I'm just going to copy this input and paste it for however many inputs I need. And I'm going to change the name and the placeholder for what they're going to be inputs for. While I'm typing this out, go ahead and smash that like button and make sure that you click subscribe and that bell notification so you don't miss any of the challenges for the rest of the year. Okay, now if we save this, you'll see that my editor did a little bit of shifting around. That's just because of the settings that I have. It auto formats when I save things. If you want a video on how to do this, let me know. I'll be happy to throw one up for you. To test this, all I'm doing is going to the folder that I cloned the repository to and double clicking on index.html. And we have a form. You'll notice that it's not like a traditional form where they're all in one line. So let's fix that really quickly. Eventually, we are going to have a styles.css file that's just proper practice. But because we're only adding really one style right now, and it's not the main focus of this video, I am just going to do it on this file. Again, we can write style and then press tab and it'll finish those tags for us. In here, we're gonna add form input and we're gonna use a display block. We're also gonna give a margin to the bottom just so that all of the inputs aren't on top of each other. They do get a little space between them. And we're gonna save that, go back to our page and press refresh. And this looks a lot more like a form now. All we're missing is our submit button. So let's create that. The submit button is going to be another input, but instead of type text, this is going to be type submit. And then we're going to give it a value. And this value is the text that's going to show up in the button itself. And again, we're going to save this and we're going to go back to our web page and press refresh. And there's our button. So this is looking a lot more like a form now. If you want to add labels, this is how it's going to look. We had a label before our input. And in this for attribute, we're going to point it to that name that we gave the input. And then in between the tags, we just put what we want the label to say and save that. Go back to our form and press refresh. And there you can see that we have our label. And this still has that placeholder text because I didn't take it out. But if you didn't want to have that placeholder text as well, all you have to do is go back to our file, remove this placeholder text, save it, go back to our form, and refresh. And there you go. So you can do whatever style of form you want. I personally am going to have a form that does not have labels, but this is how you do it if you did want labels. That's all I had for today. Tomorrow, we're gonna work on styling the form a little bit more. The day after that, we're gonna do some data validation when you actually submit the form. And then the day after that, we're gonna go over OAuth for signing in with Google or Facebook. Be sure to click that subscribe button and hit that bell notification so you know when each video comes out and so you don't miss one. And I'll see you tomorrow.